The cyber attacks were targeting the Czech hospitals for at least 2 months during the COVID crisis. And given how long they have been going on and how many targets were involved, it must have cost a lot of money. So we can probably rule out some random actors. According to Seznam Zprávy, a Czech journalistic outlet, the cyber attacks were linked to a certain Alexander Chernyshov, who was working from Moscow. But given the scale and the length of the attacks, it couldn't have been just one person conducting these attacks. So according to the sources of these journalists, it was Russia who was behind the attacks. Why would we see the attacks now? There can be multiple reasons. Recently, one Prague district removed a statue of a Soviet general that was causing controversy for years. Russia opened a criminal case against the mayor of the city district, and this mayor also got attacked by Russian propagandists and by their useful idiots in Czech Republic, including by the president's spokesperson. All of them were accusing this mayor of supporting fascism or Nazism. The mayor was receiving death threats. He had to get police protection, so the situation was quite serious. Another incident that made the Kremlin angry was renaming of the square in front of the Russian embassy after Boris Nemtsov, who got murdered near the Kremlin. Plus, another city district revealed a desk commemorating the Vlasov army for their role in the liberation of Prague in 1945. All the politicians involved in these incidents were targeted by the pro-Kremlin disinformation ecosystem in the Czech Republic. They were receiving death threats. They had to get police protection. Unfortunately, the government hasn't done much to protect these people, which shows the Kremlin that they can be as aggressive as they like. By the way, it wouldn't be the first time that Russia has targeted Czech institutions. In the recent years, Russians have targeted, for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. According to some journalists, these attacks were quite successful, and Russia, as well as China, managed to extract quite a lot of information from our systems. It is the same as with the information aggression. The weak reaction of Western countries only shows the Russians that they can conduct these operations, that they will remain unpunished. Unless we decide to stop them, they will continue to act in this way. Unfortunately, the most important one here is the highest politicians in the country. It's the president MILOŠ ZEMAN. He and his people have multiple connections to the Russian KGB elite and business elite. ZEMAN was parroting Russian propaganda that there are no Russian troops in Ukraine, or that Czech Republic produced Novichok, the poison used against Sergei Skripal, despite the fact that the government clearly denied that. ZEMAN regularly attacks the security services in the country. He attacks pro-Western politicians. He legitimizes the pro-Kremlin disinformation pseudo-media, and he keeps insulting the real media and real journalists. His spokesperson is doing pretty much the same, just in a bit more aggressive fashion, something like Maria Zakharova is doing for the Russians. Given some politicians are still charmed by MILOŠ ZEMAN, you would find pro-Kremlin politicians in almost every major party. But the two parties that are most devoted in their pro-Kremlin course are the Czech communists, who still praise the political processes of the 50s, for example, and the Czech fascists, xenophobes from the Direct Democracy Party. Unfortunately, the government frequently makes deals with these parties. Most recently, they managed to get their people in a board that's overseeing the Czech television. We see that the pro-Kremlin actors in Czech Republic continue in their efforts to weaken and subvert the Czech institutions, be it the secret services, the government, or the media. To be frank, I think that this will not be very different from the guidelines limiting the spread of any other disinformation. I frequently talk about the so-called 4 lines of defense against disinformation. The first line has to be documenting of the threat. And we are still not doing this enough. We still do not know the full scale of the threat. We do not know how many messages per day bombard our people. We do not know how many people believe the disinformation messages. So we do not know whether the problem decreases or increases, whether our countermeasures work or don't. So even in the least controversial line, the simple documentation of what is happening to us, we are not doing our job. The second line of defense has to be raising awareness about the threat. We need not only more knowledge, we also need to spread the knowledge among more people. Again, we still haven't done our homework. We need to do much more. There are still not enough people who would be aware of the threat, who would be vaccinated against what might be happening in the disinformation sphere. The third line of defense has to be repairing the weaknesses that the disinformers exploit. That might be low media literacy, that might be the social media environment, that might be the tensions within the society, tensions between the capital and the rural areas, tensions between the higher education educated, people with higher income versus people with lower education or lower income. So we have to be repairing these weaknesses because the disinformers are exploiting those. But we must not stop here because all that does not do anything to actually stop the disinformation actors. Therefore, the fourth line of defense has to be stopping the aggressors, punishing their aggression, deterring them from further aggression, which will also deter other actors from these activities. That's the trouble, that we see that we haven't really deterred other aggressors from the information operations. So after Russia, we see, for example, China significantly stepping up in these activities. We need to sanction the disinformers and disinformation organizations. We need to label their products as toxic, similarly as we do, for example, with tobacco products. We need to pull all the advertisement from the Russian state pseudomedia and other disinformation-oriented outlets. We need to use our laws that prohibit spreading false accusations, defamations, and slanders, laws that prohibit incitement to violence and incitement to hatred, because this is everything that the disinformation-oriented outlets are very frequently involved in. We have to be punishing the aggressors. If we would stop punishing money laundering, we would definitely have more money launderers. And if we do not punish information aggression, we will have more information aggressors. It is that primitive.